I'm Tommy the Duke Morrison, a heavyweight with 24 knockouts, and I'm going to the top.
You better subscribe to the Triple B.
Yes, hello, wagwan, shalom and salam alaikum. Now, I'm going to carry on I said I'd do a series on, drug and alcohol addiction in boxing, because there's so many stories, man. You can possibly cover it in one episode or, half an hour. I mean, you're gone forever, really. I keep on discovering new guys that I didn't realize had, severe problems. Some of them were, as they were getting older in their career. Some of them were after they retired. Some of them were during their entire career. It's fascinating. I mean, boxers and MMA guys as well seem especially drawn to the crazy life, which is probably why one of the reasons they become boxers and fighters. This is like extreme sports, man, real extreme sports. The hurt game, they're always a bit more crazy than, like I said before, footballers and stuff like that. Like, the more physical the game, the more crazy the people partaking in it are, and more likely to get their buzz, getting their drink on, and their drugs on. Anyway, so I think it was quite popular this the last episode. So this is number 2. The boxers and drugs and alcohol series. Now I thought, maybe I wrote loads of names down I'm going to talk about, and I thought maybe I might start giving it a theme, to each episode. I'm going to do one of the lost generation, the 80s heavyweights. There's like tens of people there you could talk about, Everyone seems to be on it except Larry Holmes and a couple of others, but, everyone else seems to be smashing it all over the place. Crack. Getting the drink on, gambling. So I'll do one of those. But today's edition, is Drink and Drugs, the white heavyweight edition. There's quite a few of them boys as well. They love to get it on, man. Drink, drugs, obviously you get your square guys like Marciano wouldn't touch it, but there's quite a few others. Klitschko's are not into that stuff. Well, they're into drugs, but performance-enhancing drugs, if you know what I'm saying. The Rock, of course, was just pure nature, but that's a different era and a different game. Now, if you're going to start some of the white heavyweight boxers into their drinking drugs, and you can throw in women too, there's only one place to start. Tommy the Duke Morrison. Yeah, now Tommy the Duke is one of my favourite fighters for a number of reasons, Firstly, you got to say he was exciting. So if you like boxing, number one, he was exciting. And his life story is crazy, real crazy. There's a book that's just come out, which I'm going to read by someone called Carlos Acevedo, Maine. And so I'm going to read that when it's published. But there's never been a good book on Morrison. There's been a couple of self-published, weak ones by his ex-wife. And I don't know, man. They don't cover the story. I mean, it's crazy. This guy was he was getting his drink on, I read, from the age of 12, yeah? He was in a real dysfunctional family. I mean, the press likes to pretend there ain't no poor white areas and poor white people in America and in Europe because they're part of the machine, they and the agenda and the elites, and they want people to hate each other. Yeah, they want everyone to fight, different races, different creeds, different religions, now the genders, different so-called sexualities, although to me it's just you're either normal, you're a pervert, you know what I'm saying? But, they just want us to fight amongst each other so we don't have to look at their machinations, their manipulations, their plans they've laid out for us, with their slaves in one way or another, whether it's wages, physical, psychological, medicinal, watching the dumbass TV all the time, sports, whatever, man. So, the press and the media like to pretend that, all white people are privileged, in the West, to foment some kind of jealousy and hatred, in immigrants and other races. So, but there's loads of poor white people, in the UK where I live, yeah, the poorest towns are those white trash turtles in Jaywick, and the poorest areas are real just full of gambling and drink and drugs and being on the rock and roll, no money, no jobs, nothing. Yeah, there's real poor places up north, and you know, dark places in Glasgow certainly before. Yeah, where it's a real low life expectancy, and same with the States, right? You know, obviously there's the well-off privileged classes. No one's, not, you know, the WASPs and, you know, other, they're the ones they like to go for. But, you know, there's a lot of others. And then, but, you know, there's a whole lot of poor white trash, man. You know, and they don't even get the ghettos of the city, right? Because there aren't really any inner cities that. There's always a few white pods knocking around like Eminem, but like, you know, they're the trailer trash, yeah. And boxing isn't big in those kind of towns, right? You know, they're also, it's in the city, yeah, sport, boxing, you know. But Tommy the Duke Morrison, yeah, and his family were really into boxing. And they grew up in dirt poor, white, trash caravans and trailer parks and all that kind of stuff. It's your typical white trash story. The father was violent, alcoholic, bitter, resentful, trying to live through his kids, forced them to become boxers even though he was a bum and he was a nasty bit worse. Slap up the mum, there was alcoholism. Yeah, Tommy Morrison got his drink on age 12 with his parents. Yeah, he was fighting in like grown men in tough man competitions. All this stuff is part of his story, you know, and it's well spoken about. But, you know, like, I mean, Tommy was just a madman, but, you know, he was from a seriously dysfunctional background, yeah. Even his brother, you know, his mum murdered some woman by mistake, although she didn't get charged for murder, yeah, when she was trying to stab up Tommy's dad, yeah. And Tommy's dad used to beat her up all the time and cheat on her, and apparently, you know, he used to take Tommy to, like, strip clubs at age 14 and 13 and introduce them to porno mags. This is not like the internet days. This is, you know, you drop and get them magazines and stuff. Weirdo, man, freak. And needless to say, you grew up a bit nuts, Tommy. You know, I think he was voted most likely, the most likely to die youngest in his yearbook, you know. Anyway, that's a whole new story. I'm going to do a whole Tommy Morrison episode, which is unrelated to drinking drugs. And after I read this book, because, you know, this is about the drinking drugs taking up Tommy. Now, Tommy, you know, like, throughout his career, he was a big drinker, mainly drink in the early days, yeah. And he used to party. Like, Caton was like, yeah, you know, he trains really hard, 2 hours every day. But then he goes and parties 22 hours of the day. You know, he couldn't hold it down, man. You know, when he got knocked out by Michael Bent in a big upset, so he was out drinking the night before, you know. And when he was young, it was all drink. You know, that's the typical white trash drug of the day. You know, now they got methamphetamine, yeah. And as Tommy got older and he had to retire, got the AIDS as well. He got the AIDS from probably steroid injections. And, you know, he loved the pum-pum, man. The pinkness of the pum-pum. Yeah, Tommy said, you know, there's just so many blondes out there. You know, and he was always, so the partying and the pum-pum smashing goes hand in hand. Yeah, he's always getting his drink on and finds a piece of pum-pum to lay on, yeah, to poke on. And this carries on, you know, even the day before he had a big heavyweight championship fight. And then after he got the AIDS, so he had to retire. Now, you know, he went to pot then, you know, I mean, like, actually, literally, I don't even mean that as a play on words, but he's getting his weed on all the time, methamphetamine, I think cocaine a lot as well, you know, and he'd retired in disgrace by then, and that's when it really went nuts, you know, and he had weird pectoral implant, all this stuff I'll go on about in the documentary, but you know what, it's no surprise that he died at 44, you know. The circumstances are quite mysterious, you know, but, you know, he was so mashed up on drugs and deluded by the end. He didn't know what, you know what he was thinking. You know, he used to claim he could teleport out of bars. He was sent to prison a bunch of times for DUI and drug possession, all these kind of things, you know, and you know, he just aged so badly. You know, he was a like healthy farm boy redneck type, you know, good looking redneck. When he was young, he was in Rocky V, and then just the drink got into him, man. And the weed didn't make him delusional. I mean, he was a Christian as well, but that, you know, his pull to the you know, to the pum pum, yeah, to the drugs and drink was just too much for him. So, you know, it's a shame. Tommy, he could have been a lot better. He's still really exciting, but he can't. I mean, he's one of them guys that did the whole party thing whilst he was boxing, yeah. Not after. He just got worse when it was after, that's all. Because he had nothing to do except smoke the pipe, hit the pipe, the meth, the cocaine, the weed, yeah. And scramble his head and he's think all kind of mad things. Like he's got the ability to teleport out of bars, he said. Anyway, yeah, it's sad. I don't think it's funny. And, you know, Tommy, I don't know, man. He was brought up in a dark, difficult, dysfunctional family, you know. This is how these things end up. And like I said, I'll make a full video on the man later. Yeah, may he rest in peace. Yes, on to number 2. Another favourite guy. Big Jerry Cooney, Gentleman Jerry Cooney. This is another guy who, you know, loved to get his drink and his drugs on. He wasn't as bad as Tommy Morrison. You know, what? He's another guy I'm going to make a documentary on. Like, I would be more interested in. I don't like the perfect fighters, you know, guys like all the ones that think that, you know, the ones that think they have weaknesses. Like, you know, I'm gonna take Money Shot Mayweather. Now, firstly, he's not as good as he thinks he is, but he's a boy fighter. He, you know, he fiddles to wins. He should have 2 losses on his record anyway. You know, De La Homo and Castillo beat him. Clearly beat him, Castillo. De La Homo, I thought, beat him closely, but clearly. But, you know, them kind of fighters bore me, man. I like the punchers and the ones that are a little bit crazy, a little bit vulnerable. They sabotage their lives a bit, you know. Funnily enough, when I was young, I didn't like Rocky Marciano because I was like, you know what? I don't know. I thought he was a bit of a bully and a bit dirty, and I like a fighter with a bit of more vulnerability. But I now realise, you know, Rocky was pretty supreme because, I mean, you know, he only boxed for like 9 years or something, didn't he? You know, amateur and pro, but and he had tremendous heart. But yeah, like I said, I like those kind of, I like those hard luck stories, the ones that kind of maybe could have had it but blew it. You know, there's more interesting in those kind of characters. So Jerry Cooney, another guy tagged as a Great White Hope, another BS thing to sell tickets and divide people. I mean, you know, Cooney came at a time where the dominant champ was Larry Holmes. Yeah, there were a bunch of other age championships, like also drink and drug addicts, but they would lose, win title, look good, lose, you know, and it would just go right, like a conveyor belt. There was a lot of guys there. John Tate with his spoon, Smith, Coetzee. But you know, I like those fighters. But you know, there's one standout, Larry Holmes. You know, and then this guy Jerry Cooney came up. Jerry had a tremendous punch. Now I'm not going to say, you know, I'm not saying, you know, causing problems being white. I mean, there definitely some white working class like Bruce Springsteen type fans would have loved him. You know, and that's fine. Most people want to support guys that remind them of themselves in some way. Yeah, or did want to be. But Cooney had a tremendous punch. I mean, and left hook, and he really, you know, he just tore through some top guys like, what is it, Lyle and what's that guy called? Ken Norton got like Tommy Morrison like on the ropes, you know, like Mercer Morrison. So Cooney done him. He's like, and it was, you know, people getting excited. They go, hang on, we got a guy who's exciting. He can punch, yeah, and you know, he's different a bit, you know. You know, we've got this kind of Irish American guy, like Tommy Morrison. He grew up in a dysfunctional family, you know. I mean, it happens a lot in boxing. So he had he's Irish American. His dad was another drunk. I mean, it happens a lot, and he forced his sons into boxing. And I think Jerry was actually Jerry was slapped around a lot by his dad. He used to beat him with a belt, you know, like Morrison in that way. And you know, he had the you speak to him later. He had the confidence beaten out of him by his, you know, by his old man. But he forced him to become boxing. But Cooney's good at it, you know. But his confidence was shaky. You know, he was definitely vulnerable. What's the word vulnerable? yeah, he was very flawed, you know, and lacked confidence. But anyway, so the thing is with Cooney, so he was always a big drinker. He liked to get his drink on, you know, he liked to hang out in the bars after fights. And, well, he's Irish American, man. He's Irish, of course he does, man. And it's funny, like, you know, like you get kids of real alcoholic, vicious parents, you know, like Morrison, like Cooney, who are mistreated by the father and beaten. And you think, well, they'll put him off alcohol for life. But sometimes it works the opposite way, man. You know, they still find themselves drawn to it. And it's such a big part of a lot of people's cultures, obviously, drinking. So it's hard to get away from. And, you know, when you go to meet women, you go to the club, you go to the bars, that's where you go drink. I mean, that's before Tinder days, you know. So it's a bit easier now to meet women. And women just throw their pum-pum at you anyway these days. Like, you know, a couple of nice texts, and before you know it, their pum-pum's like, they've launched their pum-pum over at you, you know. In my day, you need a few skills, man. These days, man, I don't know, man. I don't know. Just especially if you're a bit of a Chad, man, the pum-pum, you were beating the pum-pum off with a dirty old stick. Anyway. So Cooney liked to get his drink on an awful lot, you know. You know, but he, you know, he would be, before the Holmes fight, you know, he wasn't really a liability. Yeah, he'd party a bit, but, you know, he'd still train a bit. And, you know, train quite hard and all that. But I think after the Holmes fight, it just sucked his joy out of boxing, you know. And he was mishandled as well. I'll talk about that a lot more in the actual full Cooney documentary I'll be making. Or I'm calling it a docu. It's a bit, I mean, maybe that's a bit of too grand a title, but yeah, I'll do it another bit. But after the Holmes fight, you know, he lost his kind of buzz for boxing, and, you know, he started to get into the drink more. Yeah, and then he got introduced to the yayo. You know, once the white thing gets introduced, you know, you're in big trouble, boy, because every time you go out on the drink, you know, when you've had a few drinks, before you've had a few drinks, you're like, oh, no, I'm not interested. Yeah, about 3 beers down even, starts to hit you, and someone goes, oh, yeah, maybe we'll get a packet, ha ha. And you're like, yeah, well, no, I don't want to. And then, you know, a couple of pints. Usually after about 3 or 4 pints, you're like, yeah, come on, it doesn't matter. Let's do it. Like, ring the man up. Get the man over here, innit? In fact, get 2 packets. You know, that kind of thing. So, you know, and you know, so you're double hurting your body, and you're probably triple hurting your wallet. Like, you know, triple being your wallet out. Because, you know, every time you go out, you get the yayo, and you get the drink on, and they go well together, yeah? So Cooney liked this, and, you know, he started spending his whole time in bars, probably talking nonsense. Yeah, I should have won the Larry Holmes fight. You know, if it was 12 rounds, I would have won it. Sometimes I turn it on and I think, wow, I'm going to win it. I'm looking so good. It really eat him up a bit. But it's a bit unfair. He should be better prepared for that fight, you know. And he'd had like 1 round in 13 months or something. Plus, he should have fought. I say he should have fought one of the other champs first, because the money would have been similar, and he'd be a much better chance of winning, a much better chance of a huge unit fight against Larry Holmes. But as I said, his management were incompetent. You know, I don't know whose management were. I'll look it up. Dennis Rappaport or someone. I don't know. You know, some guy rubbing his hands who wants to cash money. Doesn't care about Cooney. But so Cooney spent a lot of time in bars, getting his drink on, getting his sniff on. You know, he had a couple of comebacks, yeah. But, you know, he'd kind of lost it by then. He ended up fighting Michael Spinks. You know, Spinks is a guy he could have beat in a sense. He was way bigger than Spinks. And he could still punch Cooney, but he just lost the buzz, you know. He lost the focus, you know. He was always a bit fragile mentally. And he was still drinking and getting and the coke on too much. So, you know, Spinks smashed him in 5 rounds. Then Cooney come back again for another fight against Big George Foreman. Again, you know, didn't train properly. He was in the bars too much. And, you know, actually one of the Foreman's best punches, I think. He walks forward like that. He totally disguises it. Then, boom, steps aside and lands an uppercut. And just fells Cooney, you know. So, but there's good news at the end of the Cooney tale. You know, he's still doing well. He's well liked. You know, he's been sober for 30 years, apparently. So he managed to knock it on the head. So it can be done, man. It can be done. Now, I don't believe the AA stuff. The AA stuff is fraudulent. Yeah? It you know what? They claim their way is the only way. It's completely psychologically dubious. Yeah? It has an 8% success rate of staying sober for a year. 8%. Yeah. Now, guess what? If you don't have any help at all, yeah, you decide to stop completely on your own, you're an alcoholic, you got an 8% record of success. So exactly the same. But, you know, and AA is really hard psychologically. Yeah, it's very unsound psychologically. It beats you up, it guilts you up. You know, it's got a massive suicide rate. AA is a scam. You know, it's based on it was built by a secret society actually of people, and they were originally Christian of types, but a kind of cult like one. But you know, it's expanded to become whatever faith, and also to you know, it says your higher power can be anything. It can be a dog. It can be whatever god you worship. It can be a forest. I mean, come on, man. It just doesn't make sense. Oh, yeah, you have to pray, get on your knees and pray to your forest, to the bird you see in the garden, or to a god. And they all have the same, they will all help you stop drinking. I mean, that's just nonsense. I mean, it's very dubious place, AA. Creepy as anything. But I don't know whether Cooney went to AA, but my experience, it don't work. And the people, it's messed up enough people's lives too. You know, a lot of people talk themselves, as I said. What's his name was in it as well? What's that boy called? Robin Williams, he was in it, but there's a lot like this, and the rehabs use this model. It's an utter scam just to get the cash money. So Cooney, as I said, he says he's been completely sober for 30 years. So that's, I mean, if that was a recent interview, you know, that's since, let's say, about 1990, early 90s. I mean, that's awesome stuff. I mean, I'm sure he gets a bit bored sometimes. I mean, you know, the drink is part of the Western culture and many cultures. You know, it's hard to get away from it. I mean, you got to change your whole life. You know, basically, you can't. Some people can go out and not drink, but I wouldn't want to, man. People just bore me, man. Drooling on my shoulder, talking nonsense, repeating themselves, getting a bit annoying. You know, maybe like getting a bit aggressive, and yeah, you know what? I got good on people that can go out and stay sober all night, but for me, yeah, I need to get my drink on. Yeah, well, I just don't go out, really. Don't go out. You know, it's just, you might go out for a couple of hours, you know, in the pub from 7 till 9 before people are too drunk. And, you know, you have your whatever, you drink your non-alcoholic drink. But after 9 p.m. and a couple of hours, it's enough, man. Yeah. Anyway, right, so, Jerry Cooney, time to move on. Yeah, so, on with the white heavyweight drunkard, degenerate drug addict edition. So, yeah, we already talked in the other video, the first episode, about a Tyson Fury. You know, obviously, he went nuts. He, you know, with the weight, with the yayo. He seems to be off it now and pretty normal, which is great for him. But, you know, I don't know. These things can resurface, but at the moment, seems like he's got it under control. Yeah, next on the menu is one of my favourite fighters. Again, similar line of crazy white heavyweight. Randall Tex Cobb. Yeah, Randall Tex Cobb. Now he's a man of many talents. Kickboxing. I don't know if he's world champion, but he's certainly world class kickboxer, world class boxer. He did fight a world champion. He got a 15-round hiding from it was Larry Holmes. But there was a guy called Howard Cosell who used to, you know, was a commentator on boxing. He wasn't particularly liked. Yeah, he's guy with a big nose. And you know, he was so horrified apparently by the hiding Cobb took that he decided to stop doing boxing. And he said, Cobb was a real joker. He said he was really proud of himself because he'd done a real service to the boxing community, because Howard Cosell wouldn't be commentating anymore. So yeah, I mean, I like Tex Cobb. He you know, this kind of sums up. He you know, he goes, you know, they call me a fat, cowardly, cocaine snorting, fight fixing cheat. Who the hell are they calling fat? Or something like that. You know, basically, yeah, he liked to party, you know. After the Holmes fight, there's a rumour that he got paid $600,000, and he went to Australia, and he said he just pissed all out the wall, partied it all away, drinking. I think he failed later on in his career. He failed a drug test, but for cocaine, I think it was. Yeah, and so, you know, he liked to party. He's one of those guys who just want to live life, fighting, partying. Yeah, he made some silly. He was a good joke. He made some good jokes. You know, what did he say? He said, I don't know if this is his best, but he's definitely better than Ricky Hant's stupid ass jokes. But he said, yeah, I once got got knocked out by a Mexican bantamweight. He was like, he was being swung around by the ankles by 6 of my friends or something. That's not his best joke, but he's got loads of other ones. But and he was in these films. What Uncommon Valor, which had Patrick Swayze, Gene Hackman. Mid-level. It wasn't a massive, but it still did quite well. It was a film of Chevy Chase. I'm trying to remember what it was, but as I remember, he's in a jail cell with wearing makeup on and making sexual advances on Chevy Chase. It's a shame there's never been a book on him. I'd like to see a book on him. He doesn't really like being interviewed for whatever reasons. He doesn't trust the press, which is understandable. He doesn't trust writers, and he's an original. But yeah, he likes to party. I mean, I think he's just one of them crazy guys who just likes to do everything to the extreme. I mean, he wasn't like the biggest level of degenerate drug addict drunkard. He didn't drop as far as like Tommy Morrison, but then who does? But yeah, I mean, it would have affected his career. But Tex Cobb is still going strong, man. Yeah, so let's have another look at the white heavyweights who went nuts. So there's another guy called Peter McNeely. This guy was obviously not top level, but he'd fight a lot of interesting guys. I mean, obviously his claim to fame is Mike Tyson's comeback opponent in 1995. He also, I think, got stretched by Butterbean as well and a few other guys. But he wasn't that great a fighter. I mean, to be honest, he had some guts. He walked in Tyson, he just went for him. He had no chance, but at least he went for it. He had a nice mullet too. I've always got a bit of a soft spot for the mullet. So that's Tommy the Duke, and Peter McNeely had mullets. That's good stuff. Now, Tyson obviously bailed him out in about, I think it was 70 seconds or something. And he sort of made his name off that. But you know what? He's another Irish-American guy who has a problem with drinking drugs. His father was Tom McNeely. He fought Patterson for the world title. I think he put him over, but eventually got stopped in 6 rounds. But and he fights for his uncle Curly, allegedly, before he went in to fight Tyson. The Hurricane, Peter McNeely was his name. Now, Peter, I mean, it's a bit... So, obviously, he became a sort of journeyman using his name. He got beatings here and there on top of the Tyson thing. But after the Tyson, he really started to... Well, like a lot of these guys, man, he got a lot of money from it, He wasn't expected to make that much money in his career, but against Tyson, he got the bag, as they say. Yeah, that's right. He actually got knocked out by him, but being in 1 round. I just remembered. I think his career. He had 47 fights and 7 losses, which doesn't sound bad, but he didn't really fight at a high level. And he basically he had big problems with drink and drugs. I mean, he had, lifelong drink and drugs problems. He says in a Boxing Monthly interview that he actually started doing drink and drugs when he was 10, which is kind of nuts. That's Morrison style stuff. But, it went on throughout his career, I mean, it's typical, isn't it? Irish-American fighter, gets taken down by drinking drugs. I mean, it seems to be quite a common story. And the other thing is, so he had a daughter with this lady, and guess what? Yeah, guess what? Peter McNeely is an oil driller. I don't know what it is with these Irish-American or Irish oil drillers, man. They're everywhere, man. Andre Ward father, yeah. Peter McNeely, Muhammad Ali's grandfather, Tyson's grandfather. I think Gervonta Davis has a Latino oil driller father, but there's certainly quite a few. They like that thing. Oh, Joe Joyce in the UK, yeah, his dad's an Irish oil driller as well. Yeah, it's rampant. This thing it's interesting, but I don't know. Maybe it produces good fighters, but McNeely. So I mean, he was always a degenerate drug addict and drinker, and he liked the yayo. Obviously, again, another one. I mean, that's what I'm telling you. It's a lot more dangerous than people think. People think, it's just a nose up. It goes well with the drinks. It's, I'm not addicted. I only do it when I party. This kind of thing. But, before you know it, you're like ringing up a dealer every time you go out. You can't go out without it. And it's costly, man. It's a very addictive substance. It's ruined way better men than Peter McNeely, I can tell you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think probably most people who have any experience of life will know people being tugged down by cocaine. Like, I knew this woman, lovely woman, she's like retired, but she had to take up a job, you know, in the local vets, yeah, because her she had this son, right? It was sweet guy, and met me. He was a nerdy, like, little guy, and sweet, and, you know, just wouldn't say boo to a goose, and he had some real talent at some, you know, IT, yeah, and he wanted to start his own company. So she gave him life savings, 35K, but unfortunately, he developed a yayo habit by then. He sniffed it all up his nose. I mean, imagine this poor woman as well. She was sweet, and this guy just didn't seem the type, man. Yeah, this ain't in the big city either. It's about, you know, this is outside of London. Anyway, so McNeely, you can see that drinking drugs took a big toll on him, and obviously, being a pro boxer and having 54 fights, it's not going to help the brain when you throw the alcohol and the cocaine on top of that. If it's quite, I don't know, man. It's not good. If you go and see his videos of him talking now and see his Facebook, he's like slurring and he talks nonsense. He can't put together a decent sentence. It's a bit tragic, man. But, you know, that's the game, man. Boxing, drugs, alcohol. Don't mess your brain up for sure. And poor McNeely, well, you know, he says he's off it now. I looked at his Facebook, but he keeps on quoting AA nonsense. And to me, he seems like, I bet he's probably the kind of guy who relapses now and then. I don't know. But he says, I think last time I looked, he said he'd been clean for a bit. So I hope so. Anyway, so another white heavyweight ore driller who likes to drink and drugs. Yeah, I just thought I'd do one more guy. He's Sinan Şamil Sam. No, I mean, you know, technically he's Turkish, so I mean, most people say he's not white. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, he's tanned. I'm not. He would be considered, Turkic, but I'm just putting him in because his story is quite interesting, and you know, he's a heavyweight. Now, Sinan Şamil Sam was he was a decent amateur from Turkey. Yeah, I think he fought in the European Championships. In fact, no, looking at his amateur career, so, you know, it's pretty striking. Now, he won a gold in the junior world champs, yeah. He won a gold in the light heavyweight division in Mediterranean Games. Okay, that's not so big, but silver European Championships, again, as a light heavyweight. And he started to move up the weights. Bronze world championship as a heavyweight. Yeah, and then he moved up to super heavyweight. He got bronze in the European Championship, and then won a gold medal in the World Championships at super heavyweight. So, you know, that's pretty impressive, man. That's pretty impressive. You know, he turned pro, the Bull of the Bosphorus, as he's called. You know, he was a good prospect. You know, he was a good prospect. He ended up with 31 wins and 4 losses, but all by decision. He also beat, famously, I think it was the European champs or maybe the world champs, Woodley Harrison. And, you know, people were like joking, like, oh, Woodley's not going to go anywhere. He couldn't even beat a fat, short Turk, you know, which is a bit unfair, cause, you know, but he was short and fat, Şamil Sam, yeah. But again, he was a quality fighter, but he had this real, this real dark habit, yeah. He was a severe alcoholic. Now he's from Turkey. Now, Turkey's obviously an Islamic country, so you're not really meant to drink, but they're more laid back in Turkey. You know, it's not, you know, they don't act like English people or like getting drunk and falling over and being sick, that kind of degeneracy, but they'll still have a beer. But the level of Şamil Sam's alcoholism was just nuts. I think he used to drink, you know, it's kind of guy who would drink endless beer after beer after beer, like that Andre the Giant type drinking, and whiskey as well. And he died, you know, age 42 of chronic liver failure, yeah, age 42, which is so young. And how much do you have to drink, especially a big man like him, you know, to die of alcohol poisoning, essentially, of alcohol damage at the age of 42? It's a tragedy, man. It's a real tragedy, that. Yeah, he needed they were looking for a liver transplant, but they couldn't find one. Couldn't find one in time to match him. Yeah, that's a real early age of death. I mean, I actually knew one dude that died at 32 of alcohol failure, but you know, still, I think it was 41 was his official age, Şamil Sam, when he died of liver failure. And yeah, I mean, rest his soul is what, you know. Of course, like all these guys in this whole series. Some more than others, but you know, the drinking drugs just pulled them down and would have definitely, obviously, had an effect on their career. Some people it destroyed, you know, like obviously Tommy Morrison, Sam. You know, McNeely's like still there, but you know, he's not in any great shape. Cooney's okay, but he's given up 30 years. You know, Tex Cobb seems okay, but you know, I don't think he was ever like that dirty, real degenerate level of addiction. Well, he's just a super tough guy. I don't know, but anyway, some sad stories there.